Hi! This is a basic tutorial. We're going to be using 3D Max, and it's covering how to apply hand-painted textures to 3D objects which already have UV maps set up. I'm going to be briefly touching upon editing UVW maps. So the way that I set up all these objects is all consistent. Also, I'll show you on just one. I'm going to right-click and with it selected say Hide Unselected to isolate this. You can also click I for isolate, and that's just a toggle. So if it's not selected, you want to make sure that you have your Modify tab open, and in our stack here we'll have Unwrap UVW. This is very similar to sewing, if you've ever done that, where if we open up our UV editor, we have basically taken each polygon, and I get to that by clicking the little plus next to Unwrap UVW, and from there I can select vertices, edges, or polygons. I select my polygon group that I want to separate, and it's going to show up on this pattern here. And then from here, you would paint on it directly. So let's just go into Photoshop. For each of my objects, I have a hidden layer called colors, just so that I am referencing the same colors each time. And then I have a UVW map. Now this is a render of what you have going on in your UV editor back in 3D Max. So if you need to render out a new map, you go Open UV Editor, you select your polygons, and I'm going to Control A for all. I'm going to go to Tools, Render UVW Map, and it's going to give me this little dialog. Now, when we're making textures for game engines, we want it to be a power of 2 always. So what that means is that you could have a painting that is in either width or height, any multiplication of 2. So 2 is okay, 4 is okay, 8 is okay, 16, 32. And if you remember any of your architecture, you see these numbers coming up a lot. 32-bit, 64-bit, you see that in your program files. It's related to memory allocation. All you need to know basically is that game engines like it. So in our case, we want 512 by 1024. There's not really much point in going up above 1024 unless you want a really huge map. So for these lower ones, we'll stay in the range of, I think it's 256 to 1024. So in this case, we want it rectangular, so we're going to keep it right here. And we're going to say Render UV Template, and it's going to come up with this map, and then we can save it. So if for some reason you were painting, but this wasn't skewing properly, and in order for it to skew over the model better, you wanted to edit it, you might want to select your faces, and then you can see which faces are selected down here, and you would hit this button right here, and it would give you crosshairs to stretch it, and then you can see in your editor the map is updating. So the background image is what you're painting, and you're stretching your sewing pattern over the pattern, which is the consistent fabric pattern, just to use proper metaphors. Now if you do make a change, let's say we changed it to that, and you wanted to keep painting, you might want to Control All, Render UV Template, and it would update. And then from there, you would want to save it into your folder, and in Photoshop, you might want to open and, drag your new UVW map on there so that you're painting in the right coordinate space. So for all of my folders, what I did, just to make it easy, is I went in and I selected each of the outlines and I made a checker pattern over it in different colors so that when you're painting, you can very quickly and easily go into, let's see, there we go. You can quickly and easily go into your model and say, oh, I want to be painting the yellow. You know what? Let's go to a square. Actually, that'll make a lot more sense with something like that. So here we have our weird stair model. Let's see, you want to be painting the stairwell, but you're not sure which of those objects it is. Well, you just go and get the right map, and you know that orange is related to the stairs. These aren't, obviously, this texture is not the same as the one on the model. I'm just using it as an example. And then maybe you want to orient it so you're like, okay, what's the face that touches yellow? Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So let's say you want to paint just orange only. I might go with my white and select that. And now I've got my area that I can paint on. So, you know, oh, I'm doing my lovely painting. It's so pretty. Now I know that this is only going to be updating on those orange faces, so I can orient myself visually. Now, if I want to open this guy up and just see, hey, you know, this is what this map looks like, but which faces are the ones touching my yellow, then you go under your Unwrap UVW, not your Edit Poly, and you select these edges that are relevant, and you can see it will select both of them. So now I can just look and see, oh, I see. The left side of this corresponds with this, so when I do my painting, that should work all right. And it's not, what you see here is not necessarily going to be what you saw here. Just so that you have an understanding, when I'm laying out my maps, usually what I like to do is choose the angle visually that I want to map it at, and then I'll click planar map, and it'll draw a plane on which angle it wants to project it, and you can align it to X, Y, or Z, which are our 3 coordinates, or you can view align and it will match it to the camera. And I like that because it allows me more versatility. Now you uncheck planar map, and then you can stretch it, and the reason I like having a grid pattern on there is I can very easily to see how it's distorting. So then I went in and grabbed my individual vertices, and okay, so I'm mapping to this plane, so now, you know, let's line that up until that's correct, and then I do that until all of my faces are oriented properly. For this scene, I've already done that, so there's no reason to, you know, mess with that, but just so that you understand the fundamentals in case you want to change anything that I've done. Now, understand that the vertex, edge, and polygon under your Unwrap UVW only relate to your texture coordinate space. So you can't grab these and move them in space because they're only relating to UVW. If you want to move the model itself, you either have to delete your Unwrap UVW, or, you know, don't delete it because that would kill the work, but just say collapse all, and that'll bake it in. And then now we're at our editable poly level. Now this is the level at which you can move your polygons around. And if you do collapse all, that's right click. Yes, you can just add Unwrap UVW, and it will pick up where you left off with the same mapping. If you want to change what image is in the background here, you want to, it's right up here. It's called, there's checker pattern, and then this is automatically loaded because it's the texture applied, but you can also pick texture, go into bitmap, and choose a specific one if you wanted. Now let's go back down to here and let's hit M. So that's for material editor. Let's say this is, I don't know. I don't like filling up all my material slots because I tend to have a million. So you can grab a material and copy it over just to keep it clean. And what I like to do is have my material slot, and then I grab pick material from object, and then I color pick the object, and now it'll just pull up into the material slot whatever texture is attached to this. So now in here, they're all labeled, and they're labeled in association with the label of the object. I've got my diffuse map. I can view image to see what it looks like. If you click diffuse, diffuse is the map that is the color painting that you're going to be applying to your model. It'll give you, if something's already loaded, it'll go to this dialog. And this is where you would replace it if you wanted to change which texture was on there, which I don't, so I just Control Z'd. There's a lot here which you probably shouldn't mess with. If you want me to go over it with you at a later point, I'm happy to. Other things in here that might be useful. All of this is awesome, and things get really complex. If you start getting into V-Ray, then you can start making some really beautiful renders. But in our case, we're setting this up specifically to go into the Unity pipeline, which is a game engine. So we're really only going to be worrying about our diffuse and maybe our opacity or our bump. So just a quick overview on what those are. Let me use the grass for opacity. So I'm going to color pick that I want it to be looking at grass. And right, this is actually a good talking point for two. So in this case, I have a different material for every grass option that I have. And these look like ass, but they won't. So you can see there's a few different bush types that we have. So we have multiple textures going on here. So what you're doing here is normally you would have a standard material which has all of this. One other thing that you can do is you can click on standard and you can click multi-sub-object. And now we have a variety of materials, and each one of these, it's like an array if you're programming. A standard material is just a single integer, and then a multi-sub-object is an array of integers. We just went over that earlier with Arduino, so that should make sense. So what these numbers are correlated over in here. So if we select element, that's going to select a single object. And here, your screen might look like this. I like having an expanded out one because then I can see the whole thing. But if it is like this, then you just scroll down. And what you're looking for is this polygon material ID. So we're going to select element, and you see I have set ID to 1. And here, oh, I have the planes. I won't get sidetracked. So this is 1. This is 8. So if we're looking at our textures here, 1 is moss, and then 8 is this grass texture. And on a side note, this is specific again to importing into game engines. If you make a plane, it looks like there's a back to that in 3D. I don't like having that set to default. I like it when it looks proper. So I'm going to right click and go to Object Properties. Again, this is more information than you need, but I'm just telling you why I set stuff up this way. Have back face cull selected, then you see, you can't actually see through this. And this is what it's going to look like in game engine. So if you want to just make a plane in the background, what you have to do is you have to, I'm just going to inverse the normal there. The normal is the direction that the face is pointing. Oh my gosh. Anyway. And I snap them together. That's two different faces looking in different directions. That way you can see it from both angles. So if you are wondering why you hit 5 and you're selecting the element and it's selecting the back or the foreground image, that's why. Okay, so to go on to opacity, let's go into that grass texture. So we're in grass 7. Right now I just have this nature plant set up, and these are the only plants that are PNGs. So if we go in and open that texture, then you see that it's cut out, and PNG will automatically install or have transparency. So if because the PNGs are loaded, if we imported this into Unity, then this transparency would happen automatically. It just doesn't automatically show up in 3D Max. If, however, we had a Targa or a JPEG loaded, I'm going to call this test plant, then what would happen is oh, by the way, this image, it says show selected material in viewport. If your material is blank, it's because that's not selected. So what happens right now is that